forced perspective, basically the way they do that, like Anthony said, is they have either very long sets and they place the actors who are supposed to be elves further away from Will Ferrell, who's much closer to frame, much closer to camera, and then a little trick with the zooming in and the size of the set make it seem like they're next to each other, like his desk is next to the kids' desks or the other elves' desk, but in reality it's about 10 to 20 feet away from those desks. And also those long table shots, those are super long sets, some sets built back to back to extend it, a room that's not really visually, when we're watching, it doesn't look like a long room. It looks like maybe 15 feet long, but really it's probably 30, maybe 50 feet long to get that forced perspective to make the walls not look that long, when in reality they're very long, but on screen they look pretty short. And it's actually really creative, it's practical, and it still works wonders because it's not CGI. It looks real because it is real. There are some imperfections here and there, but that's what brings some of that authenticity to it and makes it look so good, and it's timeless. Happy holidays, movie friends. Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to talk about one of our holiday favorites, Jon Favreau's Elf. And this is one of the most wonderful times of year. All the holidays are going off. Hanukkah started. Christmas is right around the corner. Kwanzaa's right around the corner. Whatever you're celebrating this holiday season, we're wishing you a wonderful and happy holiday with your family and loved ones.
And we're wearing some ugly sweaters today if you want to watch it on Spotify or YouTube. Jim,
Mine's honestly not that ugly.
I love the Santa sweater because he is running like a marathon runner. He's got like high shorts like you like to wear. Tank top, fanny pack, and he's also got a marathon tag on his chest.
It says 12/25 Christmas. And also, he's eating a cookie in his mouth. His fanny pack is full of cookies. And
you need that sugar, right?
Yeah. He's got a glass of what looks like water, and it's really comfy and cozy. This is a wool knit sweater. I might keep it. I was gonna return it on Amazon, but I mean, it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I might. I wonder if there's electrolytes in that water for his marathon.
I'm sure. I'm surprised it wasn't a glass of milk. Actually, it might be because it's water. It's white. Yeah, it's milk actually.
And then I got a Christmas sloth on mine.
It's pretty good. And the sloth is in a green tuxedo.
With a bow tie.
So if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, I highly recommend zooming in a little bit.
I wasn't sure. I couldn't find one that I liked, and then I saw that, and I was like, this is it. It's hilarious.
Well, today's movie is going to be on Elf, which is just a classic now. It's entered that pantheon of holiday films that everyone kind of watches at the end of the year, which, you know, is obviously a major goal for anyone who makes a Christmas movie. I'm sure Jon Favreau is so glad that it's entered that cult status for an annual watch for many, many people who celebrate the Christmas holiday as well as people who don't.
For me, Elf is always one of my favorite Christmas movies, and I think it takes some time for a film to be called a classic, and now this is a classic, which makes me feel old, but it definitely has the rewatch value of something like Home Alone, of something like It's a Wonderful Life, movies like that where when the holidays are around, they're the staples and that you always love to watch and make you feel like the Christmas spirit. Christmas spirit's obviously a big theme in this film. And ever since it came out, I've always really loved the film. It has a terrific score. I love Jon Favreau's directing. It's very comedy-style directing, but also he has great creativity, especially in the Elf world with the use of the live-action use of camera techniques to make the elves appear much smaller than Will Ferrell. And also, I love the stop-motion animation that we get to see in the film, the claymation. Claymation is a major part of Christmas films. We love growing up, especially Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And so to see this mash of filming techniques with Will Ferrell's really amazing performance, which solidified his status as a leading man in comedy. I think it's just a wonderful film.
May I correct you on something?
Sure.
It's not called the Elf World. It's called the North Pole. Unsubscribed.
The Elf World.
Anthony is unsubscribed from the holidays. Goodness gracious.
Slothlorian.
Now, Elf came out in 2003, directed by Jon Favreau, written by David Berenbaum. IMDb, it is a 7.0. Rotten Tomatoes, it is an 85% critic score, 79% audience score on a budget of $33 million. Elf grossed $226 million at the global box office, and I'm sure it's made over $1 billion just on VOD sales since, because this is, like I said, it's entered the pantheon of classic Christmas movies, and everybody loves Elf. I don't know anyone doesn't love Elf except for people who aren't Will Ferrell fans, and there are some of them out there. I'm sure.
Yeah,
some
Will Ferrell fans do not like Will Ferrell.
Non-Will Ferrell fans. You said Will Ferrell fans.
Oh, I'm sorry. Non-Will Ferrell fans really don't like him.
There's just it's like 5% of the population just hates the guy's guts. I don't know. I guess that's a thing with comedians.
I guess if you're a comedian, it's easy to come across as kind of annoying to a small percentage of people.
If you're not into their sense of humor. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure Steve Martin has that, Eddie Murphy has that. All great comedians probably have that population that like people just aren't into their comedy.
For me, Will Ferrell, I would say, is probably the funniest actor ever. It's him. I think he might be funnier than Jim Carrey. It's tough, but he's definitely up there.
Well, he might be in terms of a comedian.
I'm talking about comedic actor.
Yeah, so comedic actor.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey's a comedian, but he's really known for being a comedic actor, whereas Will Ferrell started off as a comedian. SNL obviously propelled him to household name in America, and then Elf propelled him to being a household name around the world and in comedy because it was his first lead movie. He was in Old School. He was like venturing into
imagine
movies.
doing Old School and then Elf. Like,
Crazy.
amazing.
But he pulled it off, and this was his first leading role and solidified him as a comedy star, like you said. And you can argue he might be the most successful comedian actor of all time, if you don't count Jim Carrey in that realm of being, because I always say Jim Carrey's like an actor comedian, but Will Ferrell's a comedic actor. I think they're different.
Well, the thing is, you can't. So you said comedian actor earlier,
because
but comedic actor.
He got his roots in. They both got their roots in comedy.
Jim Carrey started off in stand up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Whereas Will Ferrell just started up in improv. So I would not call Will Ferrell a comedian. I would call him a comedic actor first and foremost. Whereas Jim Carrey, you can call him a comedian and an actor because he did so much stand up. But he stopped doing stand up once he blew up. But he did do stand-up for years, and that's where he cut his teeth. But they're also very different performers. I really, man, I love them both so much. It's hard to pick, but that's not what this episode is about.
Well, it's Jim. Jim's the answer.
Jim, yeah, I think you might be right,
But
Jim.
most successful comedians, I'm guessing it's probably Jim Carrey. Will Ferrell is a close second or third.
yeah.
Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy might be up there as well. But I would say that Will Ferrell is the most successful SNL graduate of all time.
Definitely.
For sure.
That's not even close.
And I'm talking about a regular cast member. I'm not talking about someone who's like Robert Downey Jr., who was on like 4 episodes, or people who had short stints on SNL. But I'm talking an SNL regular and SNL star turned movie star. He's kind of the last one. Him and Kristen Wiig is, she's a movie star as well. But I think they're like the last 2 SNL movie stars. And I remember,
you're missing one.
Who?
The Sandman.
Oh, the Sandman. Okay, Sandman. Sorry.
Sandman might be number 1.
All right, yeah, and there's so many more in Chris Rock. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that the SNL movie star, it's kind of over. It's been over for about 15 years, ever since Will left and Amy Poehler left and Tina Fey and Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader. Since they all left, even though a couple of them are really only considered movie stars, some of them are stars, but I mean, like Will Ferrell's a movie star.
Yeah, they've become TV stars.
Yes.
Bill Hader has he did some film work, but he really gravitated towards TV. Now he has his show Barry. Andy Samberg did some film, but now he's found his show with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Kristen Wiig, she's still sticking around with TV, with film. She was just a villain in Wonder Woman 3. So I would say Kristen Wiig, like you said,
Wonder Woman 2.
Kristen Wiig, like you said, is probably the last SNL cast member to really maintain the movie star status.
It's kind of dead because it's weird, because it used to be normal. Like an SNL cast member would be a star on the show for 5 to 10 years, then they go off into movies and have a very successful movie career. That happened so much in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, but it seems like it's kind of disappeared. And I'm not sure why, because I guess less people are watching SNL and it's changed so much.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird that it sort of ended where SNL cast members, unless I'm forgetting somebody, haven't really gravitated to being movie stars since being on SNL and leaving the show.
I agree. It hasn't happened like that since it used to. But Will Ferrell, I would say, is the greatest SNL cast member, and many of his sketches are some of the best ones. And he has this innate ability to, in a lot of ways, and this Elf performance is an example of this fearless performance of just putting it all out there.
Yeah, it is fearless.
Yeah, it is, because you're
those tights.
Yeah, just being just ridiculous. But you have for something like Elf to work, for the performance to really work, and just like his sketches, because some of them are just so ridiculous. You just have to commit to yourself to it completely and give yourself up to it, not feel insecure, not feel silly, and just go full tilt on it. And Will Ferrell is one of those comedic actors that can do that, and that's why the film works, because this performance is the heart of the movie, but also is the driving force of comedy for the movie, and he adds so much comedy just from his performance. So many other actors, I think, would not have been able to do what Will Ferrell did in such a way to come off as happy-go-lucky. He has this happy-go-lucky, endless positivity, fish out of water silliness. He has a childlike performance to him where just the way he interacts with people, like in the doctor's office, he plays it perfectly where he's just excited about everything and the way he looks around. And then when Jon Favreau, the doctor, gets tense with him, he goes to his eyes, like, he got mad. Yeah, he got mad. He's angry. But just the way that he looks and performs and just uses his physicality, he's so talented as a physical performer. And he tapped into this like kind of child physicality for Buddy the Elf, which really works and really makes the movie, because he's grown up. He's in his 40s.
Well, he's supposed to be 30.
Yeah, he's in his 40s. But the childlike physicality of him makes everyone relate to him. Like that little girl in the waiting room of the doctor's office. She's a grown-up, but she immediately talks to him like he's like another kid. You know what I mean? He gives off that energy the entire film.
Yeah, the kid energy.
Which also kind of makes it weird.
With Jovi, it's kind of weird.
With Jovi, it's like, does she have like a kid fetish?
We'll get into that in a little bit. There's a lot of red flags that Jovi should have been like aware of, but she's kind of just... They're just flying past. There's so many red flags that they're just smashing her in the face, actually.
Also, I'm surprised that the low IMDb rating is 7.
Yeah, 7.0.
I think this movie is really great.
I'm telling you, that 5% of haters who hate Will Ferrell, they're coming
They really hate him.
Now, a little background on the movie. The story idea came from screenwriter David Berenbaum. It's his first ever script. Now, Berenbaum was actually raised Jewish, but his family always celebrated Christmas, and he was a huge fan of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which came out Actually, I'm not going to say what year it came out because that's my pop quiz question. Of which elf pays much
pretty sure
homage
it's
to.
old.
It's pretty old.
Yeah.
And Berenbaum's father died when he was a child, so he actually made the story in this movie as a way of a character trying to discover their father, kind of to deal with that in his own life, because he lost him at such a young age, so he didn't really know his father, especially when he grew up as an adult. And now Jon Favreau, who directed this movie, you all know, is now just a super well-known director versus just being the guy who made Swingers, because, he made Elf as well as Iron Man, and he's done a bunch of Disney movies. He did the Jungle Book, the new Lion King. He does the Mandalorian show running, so he's a terrific filmmaker, but this was really the movie that got him like big projects, especially after this he did Iron Man.
So the first film he directed was Made, which was the second film he made with Vince Vaughn after Swingers.
That's the title of the movie.
Yeah, Made. Yes, sorry, that could be confusing. So Swingers he wrote. He and Vince Vaughn, who were old friends, they starred in it, and they had a different director. It was actually a pretty well-known director. And then he directed Made, which also starred them too. And then he got Elf. And then after Elf, he made Zathura, which is a family sci-fi adventure film. And that's, I think, what really got him the Iron Man job, because Zathura has a lot of CGI and a lot of action. And Kristen Stewart stars in it, actually. And so I think that he proved his chops with that to Marvel Studios, and then Kevin Feige felt comfortable hiring him for Iron Man because of how well he did directing Zathura.
I forgot he made Zathura.
Yeah.
Now, I have a quote from Favreau about how he came to the process of directing Elf besides that information from Anthony. So this is a quote from Favreau from the Rolling Stone. "I had worked with Judd Apatow, who had nothing to do with Elf, when I directed an episode of Undeclared and worked on a pilot that didn't get picked up. When I was working with him, his manager, who also managed Will Ferrell, sent me a copy of the screenplay of Elf. I had already directed Made, and people knew me from Swingers," which is what we were just talking about.
You're so money, baby.
You're so money, you don't even know how money you are. "I took a look at the script, and I wasn't particularly interested. It was a much darker version of the film than what I made. I liked the notion of being involved with Will Ferrell in his first solo movie after SNL, but it wasn't quite there. I was asked to take another look at it. They were looking for somebody to rewrite it and possibly direct it, and I remember reading it, and it clicked. If I made the world that he was from as though he grew up as an elf in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, one of those Rankin Bass Christmas specials when I grew up on, then everything fell into place tonally. So for a year, I rewrote the script. It turned into more of a PG movie from PG-13. I kind of want to look at that PG-13 dark movie. And he was a darker character in the script I had read originally. The character became a bit more innocent, and the world became more of a pastiche of the Rankin Bass films. The studio, New Line Cinema, read it and agreed to make it, and that's when I was brought on to direct. And actually, this is New Line Cinema before it merged with Warner Brothers back in 2008, because they had the huge box office disappointment of The Golden Compass in 2007, where it put in over $180 million into development on that movie, and it grossed only $70 million in the United States market. And so then they merged with Warner Brothers because they both were owned by Turner.
Time Warner?
Turner.
So
Turner is what used to own, I believe, before Warner Brothers Discovery became a thing. It used to be Turner.
Oh, okay.
So Turner had the cable company and everything like that too. So that's really interesting. And also, how come there's never a sequel to Elf?
I'll tell you why.
I have it right here too.
Okay.
I have another quote.
Because we both did our research.
I have a quote from James Caan. Yeah. So
I know this quote.
Why was there no sequel to Elf? They set it up perfectly for a sequel. Why not continue the story if it was so successful? During an interview with the Bull and Fox show on Cleveland's 92.3 FM radio station, James Caan said, "We were going to do it, and I thought, oh my God, I finally have a franchise movie. I can make some money, let my kids do what the hell they want to do." But he must not have had a great deal with The Godfather.
But also, you got to remember, actors didn't make what they do now back then.
And plus, he's only in one Godfather movie.
Yeah.
But he said the sequel never made it to production because the director and Will didn't get along very well. Will wanted to do it, and he didn't want the director, so he didn't want Jon Favreau to do it. But Caan said that Favreau had it in his contract that he had to do the sequel to Elf, and they couldn't do it without him. So basically, it just never fell through because Will Ferrell didn't want to work with Jon Favreau again. And however, in public, Will Ferrell has continually shut down the idea of a second Elf movie. In 2006, he told The Observer he turned down $29 million to star in an Elf sequel. In 2013, Will Ferrell reaffirmed his decision to people, saying he would not make another Elf movie because he would look slightly pathetic if he tried to squeeze back into his Elf tights.
Wow, he must really not like Jon Favreau to turn down $29 million.
That's what I mean. He's a pretty successful guy.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Wow. So I love that point that Favreau makes, revealing that deciding to emulate those old claymation films really made sense for him with finding the tone of the film, because the first 30 minutes of this movie is an absolute delight. And it's just fantastic. And the tone really is pitch perfect because of the first act of the film, where we're in the North Pole and the world they crafted. It's so simple. And you can tell it's made in a studio. They're not hiding the background. The sky ends, the horizon line is only 20 feet behind Will Ferrell.
Clearly a matte painting.
Yeah, but still you accept it because it feels like one of those claymation films, and it has the music, but it has the charm. I love the design of the North Pole. They did a terrific job crafting the film. And I like especially the architecture of all the North Pole homes, how it's like this wood but painted white, because it allows the colorful costumes to really pop on screen. And then using the incredible forced perspective filmmaking of seamlessly providing the illusion that Will Ferrell is a monstrous adult human compared to the elves. And it's all in camera. It really makes a difference when both actors can share the screen together. Especially, I love the classroom shot because it's a pan. And Favreau pans from the class of kids to Will Ferrell, and both he and that young actress nod to each other. But in reality, they're probably 20 feet away from each other in order to get that forced perspective to work. And they did a marvelous job crafting the first act of the film. And it does kind of make me miss it when we're in New York, because it is so magical and so fun and so just inviting. I really think that the introduction of the North Pole really made the movie special.
Well, Favreau actually designed the North Pole in Santa's workshop, as well as the elf uniforms directly from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Mm-hmm. The elf uniforms completely mirror the ones from the television special. Most of the animals in the North Pole are also designed to look like the same form of stop-motion animation used in Rudolph, just like the snowman that he talks to as well. Now, forced perspective, basically the way they do that, like Anthony said, is they have either a very long set, and they place the actors who are supposed to be elves further away from Will Ferrell, who's much closer to frame, much closer to camera, and then a little trick with the zooming in and the size of the set, make it seem like they're next to each other, like his desk is next to the kids' desks or the other elves' desk, but in reality it's about 10 to 20 feet away from those desks. And also those long table shots, those are super long sets, some sets built back to back to extend it, a room that's not really, visually when we're watching, it doesn't look like a long room, it looks like maybe 15 feet long, but really it's probably 30, maybe 50 feet long, to get that forced perspective to make the walls not look that long, when in reality they're very long, but on screen they look pretty short. And it's actually really creative, it's practical, and it still works wonders because it's not CGI. It looks real because it is real. There are some imperfections here and there, but that's what brings some of that authenticity to it. It makes it look so good, and it's timeless.
Yeah, and the long lenses, they crush the space, so that's what makes it all seem like it's not, like the tables aren't as long as they really are in reality. And the long lens basically means it's basically like zoomed in from a wide length of a lens. And it's also very complicated because the timing has to be perfect. You have Will Ferrell interacting with the other actors in the same shot, and say an elf actor is probably 10 feet away from him, behind him at least, but they're both supposed to be looking at each other. It make it seem as though they're looking at each other while standing next to each other. So the timing is really precise on that. And also, you need a lot of light so that both actors are in focus with the longer lens, which is pretty difficult. Using a longer lens, you're likely to get, the subject is in focus, but the background will be a little blurry and out of focus. And so the only way to combat that is to use a lot of light in the set. That way, the more light you have, the higher f-stop you have. The less light that comes into the camera with the higher aperture means that more things are in focus in the image. So it's very complicated filmmaking. It's very simple, but it is quite precise. And I think they did a standout job. It's really seamless in a lot of ways. There are, like you said, a couple of moments where you can see that they're clearly not standing next to each other, but you only see that on repeat viewings, and if you know the imagery so well. And I also think it adds character to the movie.
Some other things they did for camera tricks or body double tricks is they would use actual little kids if their face isn't being shown. Like I think Buddy falls on top of either Papa Elf or some other elf, and what they did was just switch to, they put a little kid beneath Will Ferrell, like under a box, and their arms and legs are flailing. It looks like little children arms and legs, as well as when he's like a teenager and he's riding that tricycle and Papa Elf is on his back. A shot like that they cleverly did practically. It's not forced perspective, but what they have is the camera's up front on the kid in the front on the tricycle who's steering the way, playing
human kid. Yeah,
he's a human. He's playing young Buddy. It's not like he's much taller than the Papa Elf character, but they're using a wide lens close up, so he's larger in the frame in the perspective to the lens for the frame of the shot.
The closer subject to the lens will be much larger
for a wide shot. And then it's not a bike, it's a cart that they're standing on, and about 4 or 5 feet behind that boy is Papa Elf's character, that older guy, the older actor who plays Papa Elf.
The old guy.
And then in between them is a child whose hands are on top of Buddy the Elf's shoulders, so it looks like Papa Elf has tiny hands on top of this human boy's shoulders,
and his head's poking out,
and his head's poking out, but he's really like 5 feet behind Buddy the Elf. A great practical way to create forced perspective in a simple shot, but to show that he's really a human boy, and have humans play these characters, because elves don't exist, so you can't.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. And I think some of the funniest bits of the movie are the flashbacks to Will Ferrell, to Buddy realizing that he's a human. He's like showering in the tiny shower,
like the warp.
Yeah, the warped lens, and then trying to sleep on 2 beds, and he's still gigantic on it. It's so funny.
There's so much to talk about with this movie too, and I think that we've been talking about Will, we've been talking about Favreau, but I think James Caan is phenomenal in this movie. He's from The Godfather. He's a tough guy. He's in Thief. He's always played like hard-nosed guys, as well as some vulnerable characters. But to have him be in a movie like this is just such a delight and such a treat for such a talented actor to take on a role for this. I'm sure it's a good paycheck as well, and I'm sure his kids and grandkids probably enjoy the hell of the fact that he's in it. But for him to take this role seriously and actually make it, I know that on set he was embarrassed by the name of the movie being called Elf, and he kept asking Jon Favreau, was like, "Hey, so why do we call it Elf? Like, why are we calling it Elf? Why don't we call it something else?" So he's probably embarrassed by the title. But I think that eventually he probably understood that, it's a Christmas movie and how great it came out. It's just so fun to get tough guy James Caan in this movie as Walter Hobbs, Buddy's real father.
That tough guy insecurity. Let's change the name.
Although I will say, Walter Hobbs is a great character. He goes through the most transformation in this entire film than anybody. I feel bad for Papa Elf, because Papa Elf is Buddy's dad. Even though biologically Walter Hobbs is Buddy's father, and it's great that they reconnect and they connect, not reconnect because they never met before. They connect and they build a relationship. Papa Elf is really Buddy's dad. He raised him for 30 years.
And we do get that ending where he visits Papa Elf, but it's only visits, and it's like, I do feel bad when he leaves Papa Elf, because the guy has spent his 30 years raising him, and now he's running away to the real father. It is kind of tragic for Papa Elf's perspective. But also Mary Steenburgen, Oscar winner, is also in this film too, and she's terrific. And she actually worked multiple times with Will Ferrell. He cast her in Step Brothers, so I'm sure they had a great working relationship on this, which is why she was cast in with Step Brothers.
She's Brendan's mom. I like it. We gotta do Step Brothers someday. That entire episode would just be us quoting
Step Brothers would be a great episode.
Now, I do have a few other issues with this movie.
Let's hear it, man.
I love it. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, we want your real
However,
take.
2 things. One thing I brought up in our Christmas movie movie bracket episode that we did on Monday.
Which was a lot of fun with Anthony DeMeo.
Such a blast. Thanks for coming on the show, DeMeo, and being such a great patron and fan and friend of the show. I talked about how the third act of Elf loses me. It really just kind of gets a little slow once Buddy runs away, and then, Santa Claus's sleigh crashes in New York City in the park, and I just kind of I'm like yawning, and I'm like forcing myself to get through, because there's some scenes that are just like not very interesting and just kind of slow the movie down a lot. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels like this when they watch this movie, because I feel like ever since like the first couple times I watched it all the way through. But whenever I watch Elf now, I never finish it. I always walk away and like go to bed.
I think I have a theory of why. Probably the reason why is because this movie is basically structured as one very long first act and then a very short second and third act.
That's a really great point.
So what happens is the conflict of the third act with Santa crashing in Central Park, and then them with Buddy and the others gathering enough Christmas spirit to save the day. That conflict is completely unrelated to the entire first hour and a half of the movie.
It's just hinted.
Yeah.
Hinted at in the beginning.
And so since that conflict's not related to the story, it can lose you. You know what I mean? Because it's like, here's just like a new story. And it doesn't have anything to do with the conflict of Buddy and his father. So that's probably why it kind of feels like it's like a different movie in a little bit of a way. You know what I mean?
And I know we're analyzing a little bit too much. It's just a Christmas movie. This is what we do. This is what we do.
Hey.
So like really, exactly, the conflict for the most of the movie is the relationship with his father, trying to connect with him and try to be accepted into Walter Hobbs' life, get him to like him. And then, the antagonist of the movie, it's kind of non-existent. It's really, you could say, Christmas spirit. The lack of Christmas spirit becomes the antagonist of the film.
It's corporations, man.
Yeah, the corporations, man. And then also, you could say the Central Park Rangers are kind of an antagonist in the third act of the film, coming after Santa Claus. But I think that, the lack of a straight-up antagonist or an opposing force consistently throughout the film, it just changes from the conflict with the father. Like, where's the conflict coming from on the overall plot of the film? Because it kind of just like the third act of the film is just a plot that really, like you said, had nothing to do with the first hour of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the movie could be stronger if it had an antagonist to offset the protagonist from start to finish.
Like an evil elf.
An evil elf trying to catch Buddy or some reason. I don't know. Maybe that could be too
It's
cheap.
just a holiday movie, so it's not that deep.
Too much.
We get it, but this is what...
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's still one of my favorite Christmas movies.
I just never finished it. I never finished Elf anymore.
Yeah. I
forced myself to this time.
Yeah. Did you finish it all?
I finished it all the way through.
Nice,
like,
man.
I always forgot that they had a kid at the end, and I brought it up on an episode once, and someone wrote, "Did you not remember that? Did you not see the end of the movie where they have a baby? Unsubscribe." And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jovi loves Buddy. Jovi and Buddy, it is very sweet. And Will Ferrell, he plays this, innocent, naive guy. And at first she's threatened by him because he's approaching her in a way that she makes her feel extremely uncomfortable, like in the woman's bathroom and just walking up to her, and she thinks he's just some creep hitting on her, but it takes her some time to realize he's just different, and he doesn't really get the norms of society, social norms of society. And then society. Then she warms up to him and then ends up falling in love with him. But it is funny.
She falls in love with a man who acts like a 9-year-old.
Yeah. We were watching it last night. It was like, we were like, it is kind of weird, isn't it? Because the way he speaks to her is always like a child, and it's like, is this really working for her?
The weirdest moment for me, I think she should like walk away right away, is obviously he like thinks he works at Gimbel's, and they think he works there because he's wearing the elf costume, and his manager's
Don't worry about the payroll. Don't worry about payroll.
Get over here! What are you doing over here? Get over here! And then he gets fired, obviously, because of having the fight with the fake Santa Claus and destroying everything, which they had to do in one take because they didn't have enough time to do everything. So they had one take to get that destruction of the entire mall sequence right there, which is so fun. But next time you watch, you realize they only did it in one shot.
Well, they got the footage. Good for them.
Multicam, obviously. But so he gets fired. Then he comes back the next day, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing here? Didn't you get fired?" But he's in the elf costume still. Shouldn't she be like,
there's something
kind of weird.
No, you're right. I never put that together. He's
Shouldn't
still in the
you be
costume.
like, you're still in a costume? Like, you don't work here. Like, where are your blue jeans at? And I get it. We're nitpicking and we're being fun, but it's fun to talk about because
we're just having fun.
It's a little odd.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a little odd.
You're right.
In addition to the way he acts and talks, because he's so innocent, naive, and sweet. But is his naivety to a fault for a viewer? I think for older audiences, yes. Sometimes you're like, this is a bit much. Sometimes, guys. Like, Jovi,
but it's a movie made for kids.
Yeah, I know. But if I was Jovi, there'd be so many red flags. But I get it. It's a fun Christmas movie.
But I never put that together. You're totally right. That's the biggest red flag, because every other scene he's wearing the costume, it makes sense because she thinks he works there, just like her. He's dressed up in the elf costume. But for him to be no longer working there and show up in the elf costume, that's definitely a big red flag.
But it's really sweet, when they go eat food, the code. He takes her to the coffee place.
This movie gives like unrealistic expectations for how to talk to women.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I've never tried the elf costume before.
The code line.
You want to go? Well, I mean, every time I've asked a girl if they want to go eat food, they're like, yeah, let's go eat food. It's always fun. I love eating food.
I do love eating.
It's sweet, he shows her the world's best cup of coffee. She's like, it tastes like a crappy cup of coffee. It is a crappy cup of coffee. No, it's the world's best cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. You did it! Congratulations!
World's best cup of coffee.
Way to go!
It's good to meet you all.
And then it's sweet, he shows her that Christmas tree that he loves inside the store. Then she's like, I'll show you a better one. She shows him the one in front of the Empire State Building, which is huge and everything. I believe that's
30 Rock. The 30 Rock one.
Oh yeah, the 30 Rock one at right?
I think that's the tree at 30 Rock.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's a sweet moment. He kisses her on the cheek. She's like, you missed. What do you mean? You missed. Then she pulls him in for a real smooch. Great classic, Hollywood filmmaking, a love story.
It is, I gotta say, it's weird seeing Zoe blonde and without bangs.
This is before she was famous.
Yeah, because she was in another movie too. I can't remember what, like a teen comedy. And also had just her natural, I think it's natural, she's natural blonde, maybe not. But she looks so different without the bangs. Bangs really do add a lot to someone's look. You know what I mean?
The thing with the bangs, though, I feel like if you're an actress, and you have bangs, kind of got to stick with that look for your whole life. Yes or no,
yeah.
Because she recently cut her bangs, or didn't cut them, but she grew them out, and now she has like a normal kind of haircut minus the bangs. Not saying that bangs aren't normal. I'm just saying now she has just
her hair's even.
It's all long.
Yeah.
People are like, who is it? Oh my God, it's Zooey Deschanel without bangs. I didn't recognize her for a second.
Yeah, I feel like the bangs are just synonymous with her now.
She kind of like it looks like a different. She looks like a different person without bangs.
Yeah. But she still looks great, yeah. But
the bangs
it throws me off without the bangs and with the blonde hair.
And again, this is before she was well known, before she was a famous actress and singer. And Jon Favreau didn't even know that she could sing. And then she sang, I think, on set one time, or he found out that she could sing. He ended up writing those bits about her singing, like in the shower and stuff, into the movie after finding out that Zoe could sing. And even the third act where she sings as well, like in public for the first time, because she's gotten rid of her fear, she's got her Christmas spirit. That was added to the script as well. It adds so much heart to the story, I think, as well, with Jovi singing, and it brings that Christmas spirit alive, I think, for an audience to hear her beautiful singing.
Oh, I love that. Jon Favreau was a great on the spot writer, because we've said before Iron Man was written like on the fly while they were filming, and he wrote the two movies he starred in, the indie films that catapulted his career with Swingers and Made. He wrote them. And I always have a respect for actors who not only write, but write well. And he's a very talented guy. There's a reason why he is so successful. And even though he was a pretty successfully decent actor, he is a much better filmmaker than he is an actor. And I love his impact on studio cinema.
Completely agree. How about we head on into our festive intermission, and then we'll get back to Elf.
Let's do it.
Before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. We have 5 different tiers: $2, $5, $10, $25, and $100 tiers. That's only 4 tiers, isn't it? I did my math wrong. Being a patron is the very best way to support our show. It keeps the lights on, keeps the rent paid, so thank you so much to our patrons around the world. Also, be sure to get tickets to our live show in Los Angeles on Saturday, January 21st, 2023. You can get in-person tickets at dynastytypewriter.com. Go on their calendar, hit up January 21st. You'll find our show, or go to the Instagram bio that we have a link for all the tickets, as well as you can get digital broadcast live stream tickets from moment.co/Raiders of the Lost, where you can watch the live show as it's happening live around the world. We scheduled it for noon Pacific time in California, so that in the UK it's 8 p.m., Australia it's 7 a.m., so everyone has an opportunity to watch this show.
This episode is sponsored by movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. Use our promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today. Movieposters.com has a gigantic selection of pretty much every movie and TV show in their poster library. So if you're looking for a gift for a friend or a loved one who loves movies, a great gift for them would be a movie poster. And the best place to get that, of course, is at movieposters.com. They also have all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for poster needs. So this holiday season, be sure to go to movieposters.com and use our promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today.
And thank you to Blackmagic Design for 2 of their incredible cinema cameras, the G2 6K Pocket cinema cameras. They are phenomenal. We have 2 that we're filming with our show from now on, and they're incredible because they work with EF mount lenses and also photography lenses and cinema lenses. They're shockingly affordable for independent cinema and videographers and creators. Highly recommend their 6K Pocket cameras.
We also used it for some pickup shots for our short film because it is an extremely high quality 6K footage.
Let's move into our intermission and start with our movie quote competition. You ready, pal?
Ready.
You say you hate Washington's birthday or Thanksgiving and nobody cares, but you hate Christmas and people treat you like you're a leper.
It's going to be Scrooged.
No. I thought you'd get this. You watched it recently.
Did I?
Yeah.
Say it again?
You say you hate Washington's birthday or Thanksgiving and nobody cares, but you say you hate Christmas and people treat you like a leper.
I watched this recently?
You told me, unless you lied.
I don't know.
Gremlins.
Oh, yes. Oh, man. Got me, man.
Got him.
I did watch it recently, but yeah, that quote flew over my head. Good one. All right, here's mine. Listen, you effers, you screwheads. Here is a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the C words, the dogs, the filth, the shit. Here's a man who stood up.
I mean, what is that? It's not Taxi Driver. It's almost like in the voice of Travis Bickle. I don't know.
It is Taxi Driver.
Oh, he's a Taxi Driver?
Yeah, I try to do like that monotone disconnect.
Yeah, I haven't seen Taxi Driver in a while, but yeah. All right, that's definitely it.
It's very Christmassy.
Guess this movie release year. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
It's definitely old. I'm going 1968.
64.
Ooh, nice. That is a very old movie.
Wicked old. Still works, man.
It still plays, man. Nose plays. All right. Guess this movie release year. I just went so dark, I realized. Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh, my God. Wow. This is 21st century, right? Yeah, it's 2004.
1988.
1980. It's way off. It definitely isn't this
Couldn't
century.
be further off.
Not this century. All right, movie pop quiz time. In Home Alone, where does Kevin's family go for Christmas?
It's in Europe. I'm going to go Paris.
Yes.
Paris, yeah.
Bing, 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 bing.
All right. Okay, here's my quiz question. Zoe Saldana starred in what Britney Spears movie?
Oh, it's the road trip one. What
Yeah.
the fuck's it called?
She actually is like one of the friends.
Freaking driving away. I don't know.
Crossroads.
That's it.
I couldn't believe it. I looked it up, and she's one of the best friends that she travels with. It's like a trio of girls, and I was like, you gotta watch that again now. It's amazing.
All right, who we got for haters this week or unsubscribes?
We have one unsubscribed because we just filmed, so we went through them earlier. Okay, this is from our friend Jen. Red Line, JFC. It's the Freedom Trail. Unsubscribed.
No, I said it's a red line.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And then I said the Freedom Trail, but I said it's a red line that runs throughout the city because it is. It's a piece of. Someone took a paintbrush. Not
Okay,
paintbrush,
I get you.
but
Yeah, but she still got you. She also said your memory was clearly departed in this moment.
Well, clearly, Jen, you should take a step on the Freedom Trail. It is a giant red line.
No, we love you, Jen.
JK,
We love you, Jen. She actually is a producer on the film.
It's true.
Yeah.
Jen's the best.
All right, that's it for our unsubscribes.
All right, we have a great 5-star review from a random person. They don't have their name. Awesome show. Been listening to your show for a couple weeks now. I can confidently say I've quickly become a near daily listener. I'm truly astounded at the length and volume of podcasts you guys can produce while still keeping the quality so high. So thank you very much for all the incredibly hard work that goes into the podcast.
Thank you so much.
That sentence right there touched me because we do put a lot of work into the show. That being said, you did an entire trilogies podcast so close to Christmas with no mention of Tim Allen's The Santa Claus Trilogy. Unsubscribe.
I don't think I've seen the third one with Martin Short.
I haven't either. No.
Have you? Yeah, I haven't seen that.
But thank you so much. It's a really sweet message. We do put a lot of work into this, and it's shocking. I think I'm shocked when people have time to listen to everything we put out every week.
When other podcasters tell us how much stuff we have and are amazed at how much content we have, then that's like, oh, okay, we really are putting out a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, especially because we do video and everything. But thank you for the 5-star review. It's very sweet. Appreciate it. On this day in film history, today is December 22nd. In 1932, The Mummy was released as the first mummy horror movie in the U.S. In 1967, The Graduate premiered. In 1993, big day for movies. Listen up. 1993, Philadelphia came out. 1999, Any Given Sunday and Man on the Moon were released. In 2000, Castaway is released. Big day for Tom Hanks, clearly.
Yeah, right.
In 2004, Meet the Fockers and Hotel Rwanda are released. In 2006, We Are Marshall and Night at the Museum are released. In 2010, True Grit is released. In 2016, Passengers is released. In 2017, Pitch Perfect 3, Downsizing, The Post, and Hostels are released. In 2021, The King's Man is released. And happy birthday to Rafe Fiennes.
Happy birthday, Rafe. I love you.
Happy birthday, pal.
We have a Godfather shout out. Chandler. Chan the man.
Chan is the man. Thank you so much for being a Godfather patron. It means the world to us. You keep the lights on for the show. You also get your own personal watch party. I mean, your own episode. What did Chandler recommend?
Chandler asked us to rank Lucasfilm movies.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which is a lot of really good movies because you get the Indiana Jones movies are in there too.
Yeah, technically now, yeah.
Well, because the
always
Lucasfilm
always
productions.
Lucasfilm, sorry,
yeah. Now this guy. Do you own a movie podcast or what? But Chandler, thank you so much,
George Lucas.
Thank you so much for being a Godfather patron. You're always interacting with us online and on the Discord, and we're happy to see you at the watch parties every once in a while. So thank you so much for supporting us.
All right. Moving on to movie recommendation.
Yeah.
Streaming recommendation.
Yeah.
I forgot to do streaming.
Don't worry, I got a good one.
Yeah, what do you got?
Banshees of Inisherin is now on HBO Max. This is James and I, we think this is one of the best films of the year. It's Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and an amazing story. Terrific writing and directing from Martin McDonagh. Unfortunately, it didn't do well at the box office, which is why it's already out on streaming, but I couldn't recommend it enough. It's definitely worth the watch. Make it the next thing you watch as a film. The Banshees of Inisherin on HBO Max.
What's feckin' wrong with you?
You're feckin' okay? What the feck is wrong with you?
Feck.
The feck?
All right, moving on back into our episode on Elf. Now, there are a couple other things I want to nitpick about this movie.
Let's hear it.
I know everyone might be a little mad at me after this, but listen.
Well, it's a 7 on IMDb, so I'm sure there'll be some people that agree with you.
Elf has the least jolly Santa Claus of all time. This guy sounds like he rips butts in the back of the workshop all day or smoking cigars. It's funny, but it doesn't really always fit the Christmas movie vibe every time he's on screen. He's kind of like dismissive and cold. But I do like when he turns around with the crowbar. He's like, "Get away from me, champ!" like chump.
Yeah, at the park. Yeah,
he seems like he's been through it. Been through the ringer a few times. I think that's what they're going for. Like, this is an aged Santa Claus. He's been delivering presents all over the world. He's old. He's like, it's almost time to retire.
Getting too old for this shit.
He's saving up for retirement. That's what I feel like from the Santa. He's not very jolly. It fits, I think, but I just don't love it.
He seems like he buys boxes of cigarettes at Costco in bulk.
Santa Claus is smoking Marlboro Reds every holiday season.
He certainly looks the part.
He does.
He looks like Santa, but I agree with you. I would say it's a lower on the tier for Santa performances.
Also, one final thing to nitpick. The elves should unionize in the North Pole. Listen. Santa gets back from delivering presents in the first act of this film. This is when Buddy, as a baby, sneaks into his sack of magic and boxes and presents. That sounds like a kidnapping scheme.
Come on, little boy, I got some presents for you.
So he gets back. He's like, oh, it was a successful Christmas, another holiday. Now let's get back to work on making more toys. These elves didn't even get a day off all year. They're going back to making toys, and he has them brainwashed that they should love making toys and make toys 24/7. They got to unionize. They got to get together. They got to find a leader and band together and get some rights.
4-day work week.
4 days. At least get a weekend off.
I think that
they're pulling doubles.
We were joking about that last time when we watched it. Like, damn, they don't even get a day off. But I think that elf culture in the North Pole, they love making toys. It's like what they're built for.
It's what Santa has brainwashed them into believing.
I think they get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Yeah.
Which is why they're able to do that. No, but I love your take. It's great. I'm just trying to. Which is why Buddy he doesn't enjoy it.
He's not great at making. He's excellent.
He's amazing at it,
but he's not close to it.
He made 89 etch-a-sketches in one day.
How many did you make today? 85, and everyone drops their stuff.
And when 950 below
when he
quota.
opens up he's like 915. But yeah, I feel bad for these elves sometimes because they are just working their butts off.
But they love it. They love it.
But they have some great jokes where, like, I love the lore jokes. There's 3 different kinds of elves. The elves who make shoes for the cobbler who's asleep at night, like lazy bum. And then you can also cook cookies in a tree, the Toll House cookies, which is not a smart idea to do. And then you can also go to the show. The big game is making toys in Santa's workshop, which is really cool. I also love the 4 food groups for elves where we have candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. And also... a little more lore, like elves love to tell stories, and I think they're
great lore.
They're fun, they're cute.
So, and I love the candy stuff, like Buddy making breakfast for everyone in the morning, and it's spaghetti with syrup all over it, and
lunch,
and that take where he puts chocolate Pop Tarts and M&Ms and chocolate sauce and syrup all over the pasta, and then he mashes it together with his hands and he's like bouncing as he eats it. I want to see like when they're done with that take, like what Will Ferrell was like. Was he like, oh my god, that was too much? And also there's this joke we used to do this all the time, like this running gag of like the shaking your head with it was a dumb idea.
When his dad turns down the spaghetti, he's like, Dad, how many scoops you want? I'm good with just the coffee. He's like, okay.
He just like shakes his head like, and
we still do that daily almost.
Same thing with the Etch-a-Sketch list where he's like,
okay.
I think that's such a great little thing that Will Ferrell does in this movie. It's so funny. And then just like the list he has for his plan for him and his dad is ridiculous. And it ends with Snuggles.
I have it right here. So make snow angels for 2 hours, go ice skating, eat a whole roll of Toll House cookie dough as fast as we can, and then finish up with Snuggles.
That's so funny. And then like when he's trying to drink coffee and he's like trying to force it down, he's like, buddy, you don't have to drink that. It's like, okay.
But I know that Will Ferrell got a ton of headaches while on set for this movie because of all the sugar he was eating.
I bet.
He's like, do you have any syrup? I didn't put any out.
I think I might have some.
I have some right here.
I love the raccoon that attacks him because he doesn't know what the world's like, so he goes to he's like, you need a hug.
I think the funniest part about this movie that no one talks about is his journey from the North Pole to like the United States. He just walks in his elf costume. He's like on a mountain just walking in his tights. He's just fine. He's walking through the Gumdrop Forest, walking through the Lincoln Town.
Then he's in upstate New York. I love how
great.
they didn't like say how he got. They just said they cut from the fantastical setting. And he's just like in upstate New York in the woods. That's all it needs. You don't question it. It's really simple. And we get the point. We don't need to see like how did he actually do it.
I love New York City in this movie as well because they did a great job. Like the fish out of water. What would someone act like if they were a child in New York City for the first time? Like jumping on the crosswalks, eating the bubble gum. But for a lot of these shots, there's actually Jon Favreau, Will Ferrell, as well as the cameraman. There's just the 3 of them running around New York City with cash, just offering money to people to be in the movie as extras to interact with Buddy the Elf. So a lot of those scenes are actually just like shot like handheld, just boom, ready to go on a tripod.
I think that a clear example of that is when he's hopping across the crosswalk and then he has to turn around because there are cabs passing by. I think that's definitely those are real cabs that he got in the way of, and then he just improvised turning around and hopping backwards. So those are definitely indications of they were running gunning it. guerrilla style. And so you can legally do that. You just can't record people's voices without their written consent.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Also, Peter Dinklage has an excellent
my
performance.
God. Miles
in this movie.
Finch.
He plays Miles Finch, the child author who Walter Hobbs, crack team writers, pitched the idea of bringing Miles Finch in here, and he's terrific. It's a great performance, and he just plays it so well, just being unamusing and just being serious as hell. It contrasts perfectly with Will Ferrell's comedic performance as Buddy, the offensive comedic performance, the ignorance of Buddy the Elf, thinking that Peter Dinklage's character is from the North Pole. And I mean, it's really funny. It still works today.
It's so great, and I get more action in a week than you do in your life.
Yeah, it hasn't really aged that well, but I mean, Peter.
Well, no, when you understand the perspective of
Yeah.
the character, I think it has aged well because it's the ignorance of this guy who grew up in the North Pole.
Yeah, it's really funny. Peter Dinklage is it's so funny because he's so famous, and we
Yeah.
all know how talented he is because of obviously Game of Thrones and Cyrano and other movies he's been in the last several years. And then to watch Elf and be like, oh my god, it's fucking Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
Looks great in that suit, by the way.
And if you haven't seen it, he was in another movie called The Station Agent where he has a lead role, a co-lead, and he's very good in it before he blew up with Game of Thrones. But
That is a really good movie.
Yeah, and this is also an early role of his where he just steals this. He's in 5 minutes of screen time, but he just steals the show when he's there.
Yeah, Station Agent actually came out the same year as Elf.
Oh wow!
I don't know if he got any.
No, he didn't get any nominations.
So he got nomination. Yeah, just nominations for Chicago Film Critics Award. That's too bad. It's
a very good movie.
Independent Spirit Award.
Yeah.
They're usually really good with their nominations, but I highly recommend putting it on your watch list. The Station Agent. It's really, really good. Really terrific. All right, what else can we talk about with Elf as we're running out of recording time? Let's see.
Well, I love the snowball fight.
Yeah, the snowball fight's
when
great.
When his brother makes one snowball, then he turns around, but he has an entire arsenal of snowballs perfectly formed. and he just throws perfect line drives at every kid. It's terrific.
Some of my favorite and funniest moments are obviously Will Ferrell's introduction, sitting at the desk when we talk about where he pans to him. The drawback to being a human in an elf's world. And
Francisco
making breakfast we talked about, but also I think making the rocking horse and then showing it, and she's like, where'd you get the wood for that? And it cuts to the TV stand that's in shambles.
Francisco.
You made that? That's fun to say.
I love when I love when he walks into the elevator for the first time, and then he realizes he can't keep walking forward. Then he turns left, and then he turns right and he picks. Then he turns to the door and it closes on him. And his face is just so funny. I love it.
Look, it's like a Christmas tree. There's a lot of. We actually talked about this recently in a movie. I can't remember which one it was right now, but it was made in like the 2000s, I think. And there's a ton of post 9/11 patriotism in Elf. What was the movie we were talking about that I was in?
That we watched recently?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Remember, I was like, it was written in 2000. Oh, The Departed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Ton of American flags everywhere. This movie has huge American flags in offices, in front of the Empire State Building, in the Empire State Building lobby, and stuff like that. So it really showcased that time.
2003. Yeah, 2003.
It was 2003, just 2 years later.
Yeah.
Lots of patriotism. American flags were everywhere,
especially
in
New
America.
York.
New York, especially, yeah. But like, you couldn't drive through a neighborhood without seeing an American flag on houses, on bumper stickers of cars, just on front lawns. They were all over the place. So it's kind of like a little artifact, The Departed too, like movies in the 2000s that did a great job just showcasing the American patriotism and camaraderie of standing together as a nation and supporting each other.
Yeah, and especially New York City, more than any other city, obviously. And I think that it was something that we saw a lot in films set in New York. That was, I think, really a great thing to add, and it just brought people together in a lot of ways, especially in that time of American history.
But again, the third act of this movie, it does lose me a little bit. After the Miles Finch scene, after Buddy runs away. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm gonna make it.
It's because it's a different plot.
Yeah, it's a totally different plot.
Yeah.
I think the character transformation for Walter Hobbs is really sweet. He tells his boss to F off, basically gets fired. Up yours. He's hanging out with this kid it's the first time he's ever hung out with the son before, probably. And he finds Buddy, tells him he loves him.
He's basically a Scrooge.
Yeah.
He's the Scrooge archetype, and I love how he's taking the books back from an orphanage, and the nun is like, but the children love the books.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like a great story,
but pay. And then also he approved the printing of a book that has the middle little scenes unwritten
The
and
last
unprinted.
the last 2 pages.
Yeah, it's just terrific. It's a good archetype to have in a Christmas movie.
And he changes and he becomes a good guy. And then at the
Yeah.
end of the film, he has his own publishing company. And who's the first author in the smash hit? Buddy the Elf is the author of Buddy the Elf, the book, who tells his own life story. And he's reading it to kids in class. Still wears the outfit. Jovi and him have a baby. She's wearing an elf outfit as well. They're visiting Papa Elf in the North Pole with their baby. It's really, really sweet.
It's sweet, yeah.
It's a sweet ending, but again, it does lose me.
But so it's the third act, but then the resolution's nice.
I like the resolution a lot.
the
I wish we could
resolution's
just
nice.
speed up to that because it's sweet.
Speed it up.
Can we get going, guys?
We get it. Get the Christmas spirit out
Come on,
sooner.
come on. I get it. Christmas
I
spirit.
actually think it's better without any sequels because sequels would, I think, diminish the quality of this one. Because same thing happened with Anchorman, where they made the Anchorman sequel, and you're like, I wish they didn't do that.
Yeah.
There is one really great scene in Anchorman, but it's mostly the outtakes.
Anchorman 2?
In Anchorman 2, that it's mostly outtakes. It's like it's when he's been gone for a while, and the guys go visit him in like the cabin he's been living in, and then there's this clip online of Will Ferrell just riffing for 3 minutes straight, and Paul Rudd can't even keep it together.
You guys on the couch.
Yeah, I think that's some of the funniest like comedy I've ever seen in a movie. Like, and it's all deleted footage mostly, but like the stuff Will Ferrell comes up with on the spot is just insane, and just like I don't know how he does it, but he's always been. I think that Will Ferrell might be the greatest comedic improviser as an actor in history. His improvisation of lines, of action, of motivation, it really is in a lot of ways second to none. And Anchorman is a great example of that, but this is an example of that. This too, with the physical performance.
Yeah, and I mean, this is his first leading role, and he killed it. And again, this is in the pantheon of Christmas movies now, of Christmas classics.
And you can watch it on HBO Max if you want to watch it.
Yeah, because remember, it's New Line Cinema, which is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. Yeah. It's part of that. It's where we watch it.
Yeah, that's what it's called, yeah.
You got anything else on Elf?
I love Elf, and I watch it every year during the holidays. It just brightens up my Christmas spirit, and it seems like a must watch.
Yeah, you're glowing right now. You're glowing with Christmas spirit.
I got my sloth outfit. I'm drinking some wine. I got my Santa hat. We made a beautiful Christmas tree a couple weeks ago.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's been a nice couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I'm going home to Boston for Christmas
Yeah.
to have a wonderful Christmas Eve at Dad's house, then a Christmas Day at Mom's house. Excuse me, I lost my voice in this
I'll be
episode.
missing everyone.
Yeah, she's going to have, it's like the old days. Everyone's coming.
Yeah.
Everyone. It's
Yeah.
going to be crazy.
Jealous.
We have to open up the garage because there's not going to be enough people. The people aren't going to fit in the house. It's going to be packed. But we hope that you're all having a wonderful week, and Christmas is this weekend. Hope you have a wonderful holiday, whichever holiday you're celebrating. Time with loved ones and friends is something to be cherished.
Time off work.
Yes, exactly. Time off work. There's no school buses around, so I'm happy driving around during the day. We wish you all the best and a happy new year if we don't talk to you until then. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Happy holidays.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons: Luke Exelston, Tyler McFly, Darren Singleton, Anthony DeMeo, John Agraz, Becca Keene, Cody Moen, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Cam. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.